and welcome to my February reading wrap up. We have a different background. I organize my books by color. I love how it looks, but I don't know if my brain is going to allow me to keep it this way. We will find out. I also got this cute little light for my birthday. Yes, we're official now, bitch. I'm filming this early because I read so much this month that it's actually criminal. I don't know how I had the time. I had a very busy month at work. Like, I don't know even when I made the time to read more, and I started watching Severance. So good. Anyway, I read a lot. I think I read like 14-ish books, but I also DNF'd 2, and we're going to talk about those as well. The Elsie verse. I finally got into the Elsie verse, okay? I get the hype. I love her. I had so much fun with her books this month. I finished Chestnut Springs. That's the first thing I did. Reckless, bitch. 5 stars. I finished this in a day. I loved this book. I just loved the characters in this book. Theo Silva is my #1 contemporary book boyfriend ever. I was sweating reading this book. He's so hot. I'm like, I need him so badly. He can't pass my fantasy book boyfriends though, because like, what do you mean? Why can't you speak into my mind? And where are your wings? He was so hot, and I normally do not like an accidental pregnancy trope, because as much as you want to say like, we're with each other because we love each other. Yes, but you're also with each other because there's a baby involved. This accidental pregnancy trope, I loved how it was done. I loved how it was done because Theo was obsessed with her from the jump. Before he even knew the baby existed, he was like, that's literally the love of my life. Which made me not doubt at all that he loved her when he did find out about the kid. You know what I mean? It was perfect. That's what I need in my accidental pregnancy tropes. I need obsession from the jump. Loved that book. I loved how complex Winter was as a character. I loved the complexity that she brought out in other characters. I could talk about it for a while. I'm not going to. We're going to talk about Hopeless. This is Beau's story. And I need to make a disclaimer before I talk about how I feel about this book. This is people's least favorite, I think, of the Chestnut Springs, which is crazy because Flawless is right there. Beau and Rhett. The reason I didn't like these 2 books specifically. Beau and Rhett are what I refer to as annoying grumpy. There's hot grumpy, like Cade, who is the MMC of book 2. And then there's annoying grumpy, which is like, you're a grown man, deal with your shit. What are you mad about? It's the anger issues grumpy. I felt that way about Beau. I understand he had been through a lot, but even he acknowledged that like he knows he needs help and still didn't do it. And I'm like, you're 35, bro. You're 35. It's time to get your shit together. Bailey was cute. She was just kind of not very memorable. And that's about all I have to say about that. I gave that book 3 stars. Then I started Rose Hill. Wild Love. This is about a billionaire named Ford who is Willa's brother, and then his best friend's sister, Rosie. She moves back to Rose Hill. They pick up where they left off in their childhood with like banter and all that shit. It's like a billionaire romance. It's a small town romance. It's a brother's best friend romance. It's all this shit. Friends to lovers. And it's a single dad romance, but with a twist, because it's not like he was married or even had like a one-night stand. He donated to a sperm bank, and that's how he has this child. I thought that was kind of like a fun, unique twist on like the single dad thing, because to be honest, it's just been done so many times that I was like, I need something new. The other thing I appreciated about this book is the man wasn't a fucking slut. Because I feel like in every contemporary romance nowadays, the men are sluts. They all have like crazy pasts and they don't want to settle down and they're with women all the time. Not my baby Ford. He's like, I've been with 2 women. I'm ready to settle down. Just waiting on you, baby. I loved that. I found that really refreshing. So I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4.5 stars. I'm in the middle of reading Wild Eyes right now. I already know I'm not going to like it as much as Wild Love. Mostly because Skylar is getting on my nerves. The bear scene at the beginning. This is the beginning scene, so it's not a spoiler. I am going to tell you this. The bear scene at the beginning, Skylar pulls over on the side of the road to see a grizzly bear to take a video for her social media. And then Wes comes over. He's like, hey, you're going to fucking die if you get close to that bear. And she's like, I don't like it when people tell me what to do. I was like, girl, it made me not like her. And I feel like it gave me... It just put a bad taste in my mouth for the beginning of this book. Now, am I going to finish it? Of course I am. Lynn Painter. I finally read Better Than the Movies this month. And I'm really worried to talk about it because everyone's going to hate me. I have never seen anyone on the internet who dislikes this book, except for me. I think this is extremely overhyped. I found Liz as a character, insufferable. I cannot stand a quirky FMC in this capacity. And I think the added layer of them being in high school and the added layer of immaturity, I couldn't stand her. Everyone's like, well, Wes Bennett, he makes it worth it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, sure. He was cute. But, like, I had just read Boys of Tommen, and, like, Johnny Kavanaugh is a high school boy that I'm obsessed with. Wes, he's okay. I also just really hate books that try to, like, that acknowledge tropes and shit like that and break the fourth wall in that way. I just find that really annoying and cringy. I'm just not a big fan, guys. I'm really sorry about that. I know I'm the only one. However, nothing like the movies. I loved this book. I gave this 4 stars as opposed to giving better than the movies 3 stars. I found this way more enjoyable because Liz was a toned down version of herself. Like, she was still her. Wes even acknowledged that. Like, yes, she's wearing different clothes now, but she still wears, like, her big bows and all that stuff. Like, she's still her. And isn't that just adulthood? We do outrageous things as a child, and we try to be different and angsty, and then we realize, like, hey, I don't need to be doing all that. Hey, I don't need to be the loudest person in the room at all times. I found that so refreshing. I liked this better than the first book within the first 30 pages. I just loved Liz's maturity in this book. She was the standout for me in this book, and I hated her in the first one. I loved how she called out Wes and being like, you don't get to make decisions for me. That's not how a relationship works. And you just coming back in here and acting like everything's fine and we can just get back together, it's not gonna work. I'm not the same person anymore. And just the acknowledgement of, like, this is gonna be a different relationship this time around. Like, we're in college, we're older, it's been 2 years. The last thing I want to say about this book, the UCLA references were insane. I went to UCLA. She really did some research here because she was naming all these lecture halls that I was like, God damn, I remember that. The part that killed me, though, was the hour in and out. There's one in and out within a 4-mile radius of UCLA. So there's one in and out that people go to. One. And it's crowded and it's awful. So I'm like, what do you mean you're in and out? Dark romance. I accidentally read a dark romance book at the beginning of this month. I didn't even mean to. Dead of Summer by A.J. Merlin. I gave this 3.5 stars. I don't normally enjoy dark romance. It was fine. It was an interesting premise. It's about a girl at a summer camp. She's like a counselor, and there's a new counselor that comes in, and it's this hot guy, and she's like, oh, this could be fun. Is like on duty that night and finds him with an axe and a bunch of daggers ready to murder all the children. And she's like, hey, what the fuck? And he's like, okay, I won't murder all the children if you agree to do whatever I want. You can probably guess what whatever I want entailed. It was a lot. And again, I don't like dark romance because I feel weird even like talking about it right now, but I enjoyed this way more than I enjoy most dark romances. If you like dark romance, you'll probably like this book. Fantasy. I've been waiting to talk about this one. I didn't read a lot of fantasy this month, but the one that I did read was a very highly anticipated read for me. I've been wanting to read it for such a long time. The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. This was like every other fantasy that I've ever read, and not in a bad way. I like the fantasy formula. I eat it up every time. It's about a human girl who is basically like adopted by a vampire overlord. She has to compete in these trials to get like vampire powers to be tied to her father figure forever. In these trials, she meets this guy named Rain. He's like, let's buddy up until the end when we are inevitably going to have to kill each other. It reminded me a lot of Quicksilver, except the MMC was way more tolerable than Kingfisher. I am the biggest Kingfisher hater in the world. This book was not so good that I was like itching to pick it back up, but it wasn't bad enough that I DNF'd it. Like I finished it. Quicksilver note again. I found this MMC more similar to Carry On, who I loved in Quicksilver. He's the best part of that book, versus Kingfisher. Thank God. People made this out to be like a super spicy fantasy series. It's not. There's one scene. It's a good scene. I don't think it warranted more than one spicy scene. Throughout reading it, I was like, am I going to keep reading this series? I don't know. The end was really interesting, but even as I got to the end, I was like, am I going to keep going? I don't really know. Gave it 3.5 stars. Contemporary romance. Big month for me here, guys. First, we have Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This is the last in the trilogy. So good. It was so good. It was my least favorite of the 3, but I still gave it 5 stars, so who the fuck cares? I'd probably give it 4.5 now upon further reflection, but I did really enjoy it. So this is about 2 young adults who basically anytime they like date or hook up with someone and break up, that person goes on to meet their soulmate, and they meet through Reddit. Crazy. And they basically are like, maybe we'll break the curse, ha ha ha. She's a traveling nurse, our main character is, so she moves to where he lives in Minnesota. He's instantly in love with her. She's really hesitant because she's got all this family shit going on. There's a plot twist in this that maybe everyone else picked up on it right away. I didn't, and I was like, oh fucking way, that's crazy. I really enjoyed it. Abby Jimenez, I just love her writing. I love the way she writes about love. I'll read anything she puts out. Then we have Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonam-Young. I was expecting this book to change my life. It didn't. It was not bad. I couldn't even tell you anything wrong with it necessarily. I did give it 4 stars, and I haven't thought about it since I put it down and like finished it. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like everyone else talks about this book like it's like their Roman Empire, and I don't feel that way, but I did enjoy it. This is about 2 people who have a one-night stand and then like don't see each other again, but she gets pregnant. He's like the biggest sweetheart in the world and just takes care of her and is like, you're moving into my house, I'm going to cook for you, I'm going to do all this for you, I'm going to pay for everything. He's a sweetheart, and they become really good friends really quickly, just like through this pregnancy, and then obviously they fall in love. It was okay. I gave it 4 stars. I enjoyed it. I bought her next book. I am excited to read it. I just wasn't blown away like I expected to be. Deep End. Oh, bitch. I have a lot of feelings about this. I gave this 2 stars. Here's what it's about. Are you ready for this? This is about Scarlett, who's our main character. She has no friends, basically, and she is a diver on the diving team. And she befriends the captain of the diving team, Penelope, who's dating like this hotshot swimmer guy who's like a big deal. Penelope then starts confiding in Scarlett about said boyfriend and is like, he's into all this kinky shit that I'm not into, and I also just don't think I'm happy in this relationship. And she's like, oh, I'm also into that kinky shit. I'm like, hey, you guys don't know each other, by the way, but whatever. Penelope's like, well, maybe you two should get together then. And then they do. So that's the plot. And I found that plot very strange. Boyfriend sharing between friends was weird, especially since they made such a large emphasis on the fact that Scarlett had no friends and needed friends. Like, okay, that was odd. The kink thing, it says at the beginning of the book, like, this is an exploration of kinks. It did, but it just didn't as much as I thought it would, which is fine. I was just unimpressed. And also, oh my god, I've read a lot of sports romances, but I feel like this is about diving, bitch. This is about diving. More than anything else. I just did not get attached to these characters. I found them all very strange and very surface level. I didn't care about any of them by the end. I didn't care how it ended. I still finished it though, so. Boys of Tommen. Dear God. I finished Keeping 13 at the very beginning of the month. I have such a hard time like ranking this series because I love all the books for such different reasons. This was the most enjoyable read for me. Shannon and Johnny are so in love. Their young little puppy love. I loved it more than the first book. Things start to resolve with Shannon's piece of shit parents. Johnny is a fucking hero. No child should have to go through what any of them went through, but like including Johnny in that. And then we get to Saving Six. Will they and won't they between Joey and Aoife? Crazy. And I was getting fed up by the end. These books are longer than they need to be, and I think that's my biggest critique of them. These can be like 200 pages shorter. So many of these scenes are happening over and over and over again, and I'm like, I get it. I understand. I get it. Joey and Aoife's story wrecked me in a way that I will never recover from. Joey is one of my favorite characters ever written. In any book ever. Johnny and Shannon's story was not lighthearted by any means, but compared to Aoife and Joey's story, it is so fucking sad. I just loved Joey so much, and I feel like, not to compare anybody's struggles, but he struggled the worst. He dealt with the brunt of this situation in so many ways, and oh my god. This woman, Chloe Walsh, she wrote the fuck out of these characters. This might get me canceled. I don't care. I'm so angry. Obviously, the biggest villain is the dad. Fuck that guy. He got way too easy of an ending. I wish he suffered more. I wish someone literally hung him up and tortured him for hours. Like, that's what he deserved. He's obviously the villain. Clearly. The other 2 villains, though, Mom and Darren. Mom, because Aoife was totally right in the fact that that woman was emotionally abusing her son. Saying to him, you're just like your father, you're just like your father. Saying that to an impressionable child who is doing infinitely better than his father ever did in raising his fucking siblings. and taking the brunt of everything. Joey was doing more by himself as a 13-year-old than either of those parents ever did in their entire lifetimes. He's paying for them, he's cooking, he's cleaning, he's raising them, he's potty training them. Like, it was mind-blowing that this woman ever had a bad thing to say about her son, considering what he had done for her. Darren. I don't blame Darren for leaving. I think he did the right thing by leaving. I blame him for everything he did after leaving, because as soon as he left, as soon as his brain developed and he realized, hey, I left my siblings in an abusive situation with the oldest of them being 12, I should probably fucking do something. He didn't. He went silent, and the only person he kept in contact with was his mother, which is so fucked up. And then he comes back in and is like trying to defend the mom and saying like, hey, we need to do, like, you guys cannot tell the police, we need to get our stories straight. And Joey's like, fuck you, dude. You don't just get to show back up and tell us what to do here when you have no idea what's going on here. Because he didn't. He had no idea. His mother was not unkind to him the way that she was emotionally abusive to Joey. And the fact that he was like, oh, you can't go to the police. I know they're not called police, whatever. You can't go to the police because then you'll be put in foster care and you might be abused in foster care. Keyword there is might. Darren was like, you need to stay in this situation that is guaranteed to get you abused, because there's a potential that you might get abused if you go somewhere else. I understand that what he went through was traumatic, not taking that away from him, but you're choosing the guarantee of abuse over the potential of abuse. Like, I could not rationalize that. It made me so fucking mad. And the way that he spoke to Aoife as well, and was like, well, she's so immature, and like, she's calling out my mom, but like, she's made mistakes too. Hey, buddy, one of you's a fucking adult and one of you's a teenager. So yeah, Aoife made some mistakes. She's a fucking child. Your mother's an adult. What excuse does she have? And like the fights that Aoife would get in with the mom too, saying like, you're doing this and it's harming your son. And she's like, well, you did this. Lady, you're an adult. You are an adult picking on a child. I hated them both. I seriously hated them both. What they were both doing, it was just wrong. It was just wrong in so many fucking ways. Gibbsy was kind of the goat in this book. He really pulled through for Joey, which I loved. I loved their love story. I loved their characters. I loved how in-depth they got, because I feel like even with Shannon and Johnny, again, like, their story was hard and they went through some horrific shit, but Joey and Aoife, like, oh my god. The way that their characters and their stories were developed, it was just so beautiful and so heart-wrenching, and I had to take breaks because I was in so much pain reading them, but I love them. And I don't know if I'm ready to read Gibbsy's book yet, because to be honest with you, like, after reading Joey, how am I supposed to care about any other man ever? Like, Joey is like my child. I don't feel attached to him like I want to date him. I feel attached to him like I want to take care of him. I want to hold him in my arms and I want to never let him go. Oh, and when that baby was born, that man stepped the fuck up. I knew he would. I mean, the addiction storyline in here too, I think was beautifully done. I think it explored all the different elements of it, and like Joey's mental health and saying like, I just don't want to be alive anymore. Like, I can't do this anymore. I'm so fucking tired. God, it was so good. Finally, we're going to get to our DNFs. Number 1 was Ruthless Creatures by J.T. Geissinger. It's a mafia romance. I was kind of like, oh, I kind of want to try a mafia romance. I've never read one. This was bad. This is the kind of insta-love that keeps me up at night. Basically, this woman's husband has been missing for 5 years. Well, fiance. He disappeared on their wedding day. She finally starts feeling attracted to someone again. It's this guy who's in the mafia, and you learn rather quickly. They don't know each other at all, but he's basically like, oh, I'm in love with you already. And she's like, oh, okay, me too. I'm like, girl, you are throwing your life away for a man you don't know. My last straw, because I DNF'd this at about like 50%, when he was bent over a couch and he pulled his pants down and he was like, you can spank me. I feel ashamed even having said that out loud. I was like, okay, that's enough. It was too much right off the jump. And I was like, y'all need to chill the fuck out. And he's like, careful, sweetheart, you don't want to get tangled up with men like me. Shut the fuck up, dude. He was so annoying. I hated them both. So I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. And then finally, I know, I really tried, guys. I got about halfway through and I was taking avid notes this time because I'm like, I'm going to get it this time. I'm not going to be confused this time. I was very, confused. I kept going because I just really want to read Once Upon a Broken Heart. I just feel like I'm going to like it. You finally meet Jax in this book, who I think is the main character of that story. But again, this magic system, either I don't get it or I don't want to get it. I don't know what it is. These characters, I don't care about any of them. Even Donatella, she's a little less insufferable than Scarlet is, but I still don't care about her. There's no depth to them at all. I don't know. I just feel so disconnected from the story, and I put it down and I was like, no. I'm a book and a half in and I still don't care. It's time to put it down. That's it. I also started When the Moon Hatched. I'm really enjoying it so far. I already know that I'm gonna love it. It is a very complex magic system. The most complex that I've ever read. I am taking notes on it because I'm like, holy shit. March is a long month. I'm gonna get a lot of reading done, I bet. I really thought I was gonna have to push my goal to 125 instead of 150. I think I'm gonna meet 150. I don't think I'm gonna have a problem with that because I am on a rampage right now. So yeah, that's all I read this month. Stay tuned for, I don't know what other YouTube videos I'm gonna make, but we'll see.